Hey there, fellow time travelers. If you enjoy stepping into the past and imagining what life was really like for an ordinary person, remember to like and subscribe. Now, tell me who should travel next and in what year. Before we begin another journey, I would really love to know which state you are listening from and what time it is where you are. Let me know in the comments. All right, let's set the scene. Imagine yourself ripped from your comfortable chair, your laptop, your noise-canceling headphones, and dropped into the heart of ancient Mesopotamia. The year is 1750 BCE. The place, Babylon, under the mighty Hammurabi, a pungent scent, a thick, suffocating wave, slams into him as he stumbles through what feels like a massive archway, the city gate. It is the raw, unwashed smell of countless human bodies pressed too close together, mingled with baked mud, a sharp tang of animal waste, and the cloying sweetness of incense burning somewhere nearby, trying to mask the underlying odor. He coughs, the dust catching in his throat, a dry rasp that makes his eyes water. His vision, still adjusting from the sudden shift, tries desperately to make sense of the dizzying, churning mass around him. He is here, a man of 49, an urban planner whose life's work involves optimizing traffic flow, designing sustainable infrastructure, and enforcing zoning regulations for sprawling modern metropolises. Suddenly, he is standing amidst what appears to be a grand, sun-drenched gateway of a city that feels utterly alien, utterly unplanned. The sheer density of people, donkeys laden with goods, and carts scraping by on the unpaved, uneven ground is overwhelming. There are no clear pedestrian zones, no visible road markings, no discernible lanes for any kind of organized movement. His professional eye immediately registers the chaotic flow, the complete lack of any structured order he understands. He watches, mouth slightly agape and stomach churning, as a shepherd expertly navigates a small flock of bleeding sheep through a throng of merchants hawking clay tablets and women balancing heavy water jars on their heads. The sun beats down with an intensity he's never known, a dry, oppressive heat that bakes the enormous clay bricks of the towering walls and the nearby buildings to a uniform reddish brown. His modern clothes, a lightweight linen shirt and comfortable chinos, feel heavy, sticky, and utterly out of place. He sees the city's vast scale, a dense labyrinth of narrow, winding alleys that disappear between multi-storied mud brick houses, all appearing to cling to each other without any logical arrangement or setback rules. His mind, trained to see grids, efficiency, and designated green spaces, struggles to impose any familiar order on this organic, sprawling maze. He notes the obvious absence of enclosed plumbing systems, the open drains carrying gray water directly into the street, the accumulated waste piled in street corners. His modern assumptions about sanitation and public health clash violently with this immediate, inescapable reality. He feels a rising sense of panic, but also a strange, almost detached, professional curiosity. How did this city function? How did they manage waste and fresh water for so many people? How did they move goods and themselves through such density without constant gridlock? He realizes the enormity of his situation, the utter disconnect from everything he knows, everything he has ever planned for. The constant clamor of unfamiliar guttural languages, the shouts, the bleating, the rhythmic pounding from a nearby workshop, all merge into a disorienting, inescapable symphony. He knows Babylon was a marvel, a center of culture and power. But this close-up, visceral, sensory assault is a far cry from the sanitized history books and architectural diagrams. The jarring cacophony is what assaults him first today. A relentless symphony of guttural Akkadian shouts, the bleating of tethered goats, the clang of copper tools, and the insistent chatter of 100 simultaneous transactions. It's not just loud, it's a swirling, disorganized storm of sound, completely devoid of any rhythm or pattern his modern ears can grasp. He feels a dull ache behind his eyes, a physical manifestation of his brain trying to filter, categorize, and make sense of the auditory onslaught, only to fail repeatedly. This vast, sprawling marketplace is a microcosm of the city's chaos, a living, breathing entity that defies every principle of efficient urban design he has ever known. He moves through the dense crowd, a ghost of his former self, constantly bumping shoulders and sidestepping donkeys, laden with enormous baskets of dates and clay pots. His urban planner's mind, accustomed to delineating public squares, commercial districts, and residential zones, is in a constant state of internal protest. Here, a woman selling woven mats squats next to a man bartering over a flock of plump sheep, while a few feet away, a scribe meticulously etches cuneiform symbols onto a clay tablet, seemingly oblivious to the swirling pandemonium around him. There are no designated stalls, no organized aisles, no clear pathways for pedestrian flow. His eyes scan for patterns, for any underlying logic, but find only a bewildering, organic sprawl where space is claimed and relinquished in an instant. He tries to observe, to learn the unwritten rules of this ancient street ballet. How do people buy and sell without a standardized currency he recognizes, beyond the occasional glint of a silver ring or a copper ingot changing hands? How do they communicate complex transactions amidst such a linguistic and cultural maelstrom? He watches as a vendor gestures wildly, pointing at a pile of barley, then to a length of rough wool. A silent negotiation of value that would be meticulously documented in his world. His professional instincts scream for signage, for clear pricing, for consumer protection laws. But all he sees is a primal exchange of goods, driven by immediate need and sharp wits. The sheer volume of goods fascinates him even as it disorients. Piles of glistening dates, sacks of grain, bundles of aromatic herbs, live chickens squawking from wicker cages, intricate pottery, polished stone tools, and shimmering fabrics are all laid out directly on the dusty ground or on simple reed mats. The air is thick with the competing smells of dried fish, fresh bread, animal sweat, and spices, each vying for his attention, assaulting his senses. He notices the small canals running through parts of the market area, vital arteries for water delivery and waste removal, but also potential hazards for the unwary pedestrian. He mentally sketches out improvements, imagining elevated walkways, designated waste collection points, or even just a simple system of street numbering. But these thoughts are fleeting, quickly drowned by the reality that such concepts are utterly alien, unnecessary even to this society. His modern assumptions about efficiency and order are not just unhelpful, they are actively hindering his understanding, creating a mental dissonance that leaves him feeling perpetually off balance. He walks, learning to mimic the locals' weaving gait, the way they avert their gaze but remain aware, the subtle shifts in body language that signal intent or avoidance. He is slowly learning to navigate the physical space, but the mental space of ancient Babylon, with its different values, its different understanding of time and community, remains largely inscrutable. He ends the week feeling not just physically tired, but profoundly weary in a way that goes beyond muscle and bone. A mental fatigue from constantly trying to translate a world without a dictionary, raw, gritty brick under his fingertips. That's the first sensation, day after day this week. Not the smooth, uniform concrete or steel he's used to, but coarse, sun-baked clay, often mixed with straw rough against his skin. He runs his hand over the uneven surface of the wall outside what has become his temporary shelter, feeling the imperfections, the slight give of the mortar. Every building, from the grandest temple ziggurat to the humblest dwelling, is born from this same mud, shaped by hands, baked by the relentless sun. His urban planner's brain immediately registers the limitations. No tall steel frames, no reinforced concrete, just monumental effort and the abundance of local earth. This dictates everything about the city's structure, its density, its very aesthetic. Then there's the water. The stark, undeniable reality of no running water hits him harder this week than ever before. He watches the women, often young girls, making multiple trips to the nearby canal or a communal well. balancing heavy clay jars on their heads. Each drop is precious, earned through sheer physical labor. There are no taps to turn, no showers to step into, no flush toilets. His modern assumptions about hygiene are constantly under assault. He feels a perpetual film of grime, dust, and sweat clinging to him. No matter how carefully he washes himself with a small, precious amount of water, the basic act of personal cleanliness, once a thoughtless routine, now demands conscious planning and significant effort. His professional eye sees the rudimentary system at play, the vast network of irrigation canals, a marvel of ancient engineering, brings the Euphrates' lifeblood to the city's agricultural lands and for public use. He's seen larger, more prominent canals running through the city itself, some even lined with bitumen to prevent leakage, a testament to sophisticated hydraulic knowledge. But these are not for personal convenience. They are for the collective good, for crops, for animals, for the public bathhouses he has yet to fully comprehend. For drinking, specific wells or filtered canal water are used, often carried by dedicated water sellers. His modern brain immediately wants to design a pressurized distribution system, imagining pipes and pumps, but he quickly understands the futility. The technology, the materials, the very concept of individual household plumbing simply do not exist. He watches, learning how the locals manage. They are remarkably efficient with their water, using it sparingly, recycling what they can for different purposes. The lack of waste is startling. His own instincts to let the tap run while brushing teeth or washing dishes feel shockingly extravagant and deeply inappropriate here. He sees the public latrines, often simple holes in the ground leading to covered pits or canals, a system that, while far from modern standards, is a practical solution for a dense population without complex sewerage. His frustration with the primitive setup begins to slowly morph into a reluctant admiration for the sheer ingenuity of adaptation, for making do with what is available, for the inherent sustainability born of necessity. He finds himself not just physically hotter and dirtier, but mentally recalibrated. The things he took for granted, the invisible infrastructure of pipes, pumps, and purification plants that ensured clean, abundant water, now loom as monumental achievements, silent pillars of modern life. This week, the weight of the past isn't just about strange smells or sounds. It's about the tangible effort required for basic survival. A stark lesson in humanity's unending struggle for comfort against a challenging environment. His eyes burn, a perpetual irritation this week, from the acrid, biting smoke that hangs heavy in the air, a constant companion in the labyrinthine alleys. It's not just the cooking fires, though their sharp, woody scent is everywhere. It's the wafting fumes from charcoal braziers used by metalworkers, the smoldering dung for fuel in homes, and the occasional pungent puff from a distant kiln. The smoke stings his nostrils, coats his throat, and leaves a gritty film on his tongue, making every breath a conscious effort. He finds himself blinking more often, trying to clear the haze from his vision, a haze that seems to blur the already confusing pathways. He navigates these alleys, or rather, he attempts to. Every turn looks the same, every mud brick wall a mirror image of the last. His modern brain, accustomed to clear street signs, house numbers, and the reassuring presence of a GPS, feels utterly lost, constantly disoriented. There are no grids, no logical intersections, just a bewildering tangle of narrow passages that twist and turn, often ending abruptly in a private courtyard or a blind wall. His urban planner's mind screams for order, for a system, for any kind of discernible pattern to map this chaos. He tries to employ familiar mental tricks, landmarks, sun position, the direction of the main canal, but even these are unreliable. The sun, while consistent, reveals only cardinal directions, not the intricate path to a specific dwelling. Landmarks, a particular vendor's stall, a uniquely carved doorway are fleeting, easily missed in the crush of people, or simply too numerous to form a reliable sequence. His frustration grows with each mistaken turn, each backtrack. He feels like a mouse in a maze, constantly bumping into invisible walls of disorganization. He observes the locals, how they seem to glide through these same streets with an innate sense of direction, an almost preternatural awareness of their surroundings. They don't look for street names. They look for the old man who sells dates, or the house with the distinctive red-painted door, or the alley that smells faintly of fresh bread. Their internal navigation system relies on sensory cues and deep-seated memory, a map he simply doesn't possess. This is a fundamental clash of spatial reasoning. His systematic, top-down approach versus their organic, bottom-up knowledge. He's learned that properties in Babylon were sometimes identified by their owners or by specific features, like the house of Nabuplaidna by the canal branch of Shamus. This hints at a kind of address, but it's entirely personal, not a universal grid. He watches as someone points a finger down a winding passage, a simple gesture that conveys more information to a local than any modern map could. He starts to pay closer attention to the subtle shifts in the scent of an alley, the strong aroma of a tannery here, the faint, sweet smell of a date syrup shop. They're trying to build a new kind of sensory map, a tactile and olfactory guide. The dust, omnipresent and fine, seems to coat everything, settling on his skin, in his hair, a constant reminder of the raw, unpaved earth beneath his feet. This week, the challenge isn't just about the physical discomfort or the culture shock. It's about the profound intellectual humiliation of being utterly incapable in a fundamental human skill, finding his way. He feels a deep, unnerving vulnerability, the kind that comes from realizing that even his most basic assumptions about how the world should be ordered are completely irrelevant here. He reflects that perhaps the truly lost are not those without a map, but those who cannot abandon their old one. The brutal sun, a ceaseless hammer, beats down on his skin, scorching it even through the thin tunic he's acquired. This week, he stands often in the open, gazing upwards, trying to comprehend the sheer scale and audacity of the ziggurats. They loom monumental and immense, baked earth piled upon baked earth, their stepped profiles piercing the cloudless sky. He feels dwarfed, insignificant beneath these ancient giants, which are not just buildings, but mountains of human effort and unwavering faith. The rough texture of the sun-dried bricks, visible even from a distance, hints at the uncountable hands that formed and laid each one. His urban planner's mind, accustomed to optimizing construction schedules and material sourcing, struggles to process the feat. These aren't just tall buildings. They are entire hills created from scratch. He knows the basic principles of load-bearing and foundation, but the sheer volume of material, transported and assembled without modern machinery, without even the wheelbarrow in its common form, is staggering. He sees lines of laborers, their bodies gleaming with sweat, carrying baskets of mud bricks on their heads, shuffling up ramps that spiral around the colossal structures. The rhythmic grunts and the steady thud of feet on dirt are the only sounds he registers. A relentless, human-powered construction site stretching back centuries. He starts to grasp an impossible, ancient truth. Urban planning here isn't about maximizing profit or individual convenience. It's about collective will, divine mandate, and monumental devotion. The ziggurat, a temple tower to the city's patron deity Marduk, isn't just a building. It's the spiritual and literal heart of Babylon. Its presence dictates the city's orientation, its most prominent avenues, and the flow of its people, all radiating outwards from this sacred center. He realizes that what he initially perceived as chaos was, in fact, an entirely different kind of order, one subservient to celestial powers and communal ritual, not to the rational logic of efficient circulation or economic zones. He reflects on the purpose of such a structure. In his world, the tallest buildings are monuments to corporate power or human ingenuity. Here, they are a ladder to the heavens, a physical link between mortals and gods, a way to invite divine favor and protection upon the city and its people. This religious centrality explains the immense resources, the sheer number of laborers, the dedication. It's a project of faith, not a commercial enterprise. His modern assumptions about the separation of church and state, or the secular nature of public works, are completely inverted. The urban plan is the sacred plan. He notices the organized movement of supplies along the main processional way leading to the ziggurat, a clearer path than most. Perhaps this is where his skills could eventually find a foothold, understanding and improving the logistics for these colossal, sacred projects. But even that thought feels presumptuous, an imposition of his values onto a world that has its own profound, established truths. He feels a deep humility wash over him, a realization that the ambition of humanity, whether powered by technology or faith, is a constant across millennia. This week, the weight of the past feels less like a burden and more like a profound lesson in perspective, a quiet reordering of his own understanding of purpose and progress. He feels the cool, damp resistance of a fresh clay tablet beneath his fingers. A stylus, a sharpened reed, feels clumsy in his hand, a stark contrast to the precise movements he's accustomed to with a digital pen on a touchscreen. This week, he finds himself sketching. Not grand city plans yet, but simpler observations. He's trying to map the flow of water, especially after a recent unseasonal downpour turned some alleys into muddy rivulets. The persistent dampness beneath his dwelling after the rain is a constant reminder of the city's struggle with drainage, a problem as old as settlement itself. His urban planner's mind, trained in hydrology and stormwater management, immediately sees the issues. The unpaved streets, while absorbent, also become slick and impassable. The existing narrow drains, sometimes just open channels, are easily overwhelmed, leading to stagnant pools that breed insects and disease. He attempts to illustrate a simple idea: a slightly crowned street surface, allowing water to run off to covered side channels that lead directly to the main canals. He presses the reed into the soft clay, the lines emerging unevenly, not the crisp vectors of his CAD software, but a rudimentary diagram of gradients and flows. He grapples with the limitations of his tools. There are no rulers with precise measurements, no protractors for angles. He uses his thumb for a rough estimate of length, relying on an intuitive sense of proportion. The Babylonian measurement system, based on cubits and fingers, feels both archaic and practical, utterly divorced from his metric and imperial frameworks. His attempts to draw a straight line or a perfect curve often result in a wavering squiggle. He's used to working with absolute precision, with tolerances measured in millimeters. Here, precision is a luxury, a relative concept. The scale of the overall city planning seems more organic, less about perfect geometry and more about practical accommodation. his modern assumptions about standardization and replicability are constantly challenged. Every brick is hand-formed, every canal dug by hand, every structure built with an inherent individuality. He understands that King Hammurabi's legal code, famous for its detailed laws, also included regulations about building construction, mandating responsibility for collapse and defining property boundaries. This suggests an underlying need for order and accountability, a rudimentary form of building code. He wonders if his ideas for improving drainage, for making the streets less prone to flooding, could find a place within this ancient system, perhaps by appealing to public health or royal decree. He watches children playing in a temporary puddle, splashing with a carefree joy he momentarily envies, before the sharp tang of stagnant water brings him back to the practicalities, the raw earth, the open sky, the immense effort behind every engineered solution, however simple. All make him realize the immense distance between his world and this one. He feels not just the resistance of the clay beneath his reed, but the deeper resistance of time itself, the stubborn weight of established practices. He finishes his crude drawing, a mere thought on a tablet, a whisper of a modern solution in an ancient tongue. This week, the struggle is not just for survival, but for a voice, for a way to translate his knowledge into a form that might resonate, however subtly, within this profound antiquity. A dry, parched feeling in his throat, a constant companion, reminds him of the paramount need for water. This week, he is bartering for it, learning the intricate, often frustrating dance of exchange. He offers a small, silver coin, one of the few modern artifacts he had on him, surprisingly accepted as a curiosity in the early days, for a jar of water from a vendor, who eyes it cautiously, then nods, a silent agreement. The exchange feels both ancient and universal, a basic survival lesson etched into his very being. The clink of the coin, the weight of the clay jar, the glug of water as he drinks, all amplified by the pressing need. He spends hours by the canals this week, observing, learning their rhythm. He traces their paths with his eyes, seeing how the larger arteries from the Euphrates branch into smaller veins, weaving through the city, providing life. He notes the subtle currents, the way the water level fluctuates slightly, dictated by upstream gates or the needs of distant fields. His urban planner's mind, accustomed to sophisticated municipal water management systems, is slowly beginning to appreciate the elegance and raw functionality of this ancient network. It's a system designed not by central processing units and complex algorithms, but by generations of practical experience, trial and error, and the sheer force of collective labor. He sees the specific points where people draw water, carefully constructed stone steps leading down to a calmer pool, or a designated section where water carriers fill their large jars. He observes the unspoken rules of access, the hierarchy of use. The canals serve multiple purposes: irrigation for small garden plots within the city walls, transport for goods on small boats, a place for washing clothes, and sometimes a convenient receptacle for waste. He understands now why the water vendors are so crucial. They filter and deliver cleaner water, often from specific, purer sources, making them essential figures in the city's health infrastructure. Even if rudimentary, his modern appreciation for public health initiatives makes him recognize their vital, if informal, role. His modern assumptions about water purity and universal access are continually challenged. He's seen people drink directly from the canals, a sight that still makes his stomach clench. He realizes the prevalence of dysentery and other waterborne diseases must be immense, a constant, unseen threat permeating the city. He starts to wonder about the system of rights to water, an essential aspect of urban planning in any era. He knows from historical snippets that Hammurabi's code contains detailed laws about water use, irrigation, and disputes, demonstrating the vital importance of this resource and the advanced legal framework that governed its distribution. This is urban planning, ancient style, not just design, but the intricate social and legal systems built around essential resources. He feels a growing sense of respect for the sheer resilience of these people, for their ability to thrive in an environment that would send most modern cities into a catastrophic collapse. The sun continues its relentless beat, drying his skin, making him thirst again. But this time, the thirst is met not with panic, but with a growing understanding of how to survive it. This week, he feels a shift, a tiny crack in the wall of his modern sensibilities, allowing a glimpse of the profound wisdom embedded in ancient practices. Survival, he now sees, is not just about adapting to the past, but about learning to see its intricate, self-sustaining logic. The dry, crumbly texture of rough barley bread against his tongue is the taste of this week, a staple that fills his stomach and offers a sense of stability. He sits by the broad, brown expanse of the Euphrates River, its sluggish current carrying reeds and refuse downstream. Beside him, a local mason, a man with powerful forearms and eyes crinkled from years in the sun, breaks off a piece of his own flatbread and extends it. A silent understanding, a basic human connection beyond language, forms between them in that simple gesture of sharing sustenance. He has been observing this mason for days, watching him work on a small, communal well structure near the riverbank. The man's movements are practiced, economical, each action precise. He shapes and smooths the mud bricks, mixing mortar from clay and straw with his bare feet, building up layers with an ancient, intuitive skill. His urban planner's mind, trained in project management and construction logistics, recognizes the fundamental principles at play: the careful laying of foundations, the vertical alignment, the distribution of weight. But the tools are so different. No spirit levels, no plumb bobs as he knows them, just a discerning eye and a heavy wooden mallet. He finds himself pointing at the partially built wall, then tracing a line on the ground with his finger, suggesting a slight inward slope, an idea for reinforcing the structure against the river's occasional swell. The mason, initially wary, observes his gestures, then nods slowly, a flicker of comprehension in his eyes. He then points to an existing crack in a nearby, older section of the wall and gestures to the rushing river, a silent explanation of past failures and the constant struggle against the forces of nature. His modern knowledge of structural integrity and erosion control finds an unexpected, if rudimentary, channel of communication. His modern assumptions about professional hierarchy and expertise are blurred here. In his world, a mason would follow blueprints drafted by engineers and architects. Here, the mason is the engineer, the architect, the project manager. His skills are born from generations of practical application, not theoretical education. Yet he sees a shared language in the understanding of materials and forces, a common ground where his abstract principles of design can meet the mason's concrete experience. He sketches again, this time on the sand, demonstrating how a deeper, wider foundation might prevent future cracking, using small stones to represent buttresses. The mason watches, tracing the lines with his own finger, a thoughtful frown on his brow. He feels a quiet satisfaction, a sense of belonging in this shared moment of problem solving. It's a small victory against the overwhelming sense of alienation he has carried. The river flows on, a constant backdrop to the ceaseless building and rebuilding of the city. He reflects that perhaps the essence of urban planning, stripped of its technology and bureaucracy, is simply the desire to build things better, more resilient, and that this desire is as old as humanity itself. This week, the fear of being utterly useless has begun to recede, replaced by a tentative hope that his insights, however primitive their expression, might just make a difference, even in this distant, ancient past. The warmth of the clay tablet against his palm, still soft and pliable, is a comfort this week. He holds it carefully, his thumb smoothing a faint smudge near an etched line. Before him sits an elder, a man whose lined face and calm, appraising gaze suggest years of quiet authority. This man, perhaps a high-ranking scribe or a temple administrator involved in managing the city's vast estates and construction projects, listens with an almost unnerving stillness. He has been watching the elder, observing his movements, the way people defer to him, sensing that this is a conduit, however narrow, to the city's operational heart. He leans forward, his voice kept low, almost a murmur, trying to articulate complex spatial concepts without the words. He points to the crude map he has drawn, a section of what could be a developing area near one of the outer city walls. He outlines the existing organic sprawl with a finger. Then, with a sharpened reed, he gently etches new, straighter lines, showing how a more regular arrangement of structures, a kind of rudimentary grid for pathways, could create clearer access to water points, to communal ovens, or even to the nearest gate. His modern mind, still hardwired for efficiency and logical flow, wants to impose order, to minimize congestion and improve public services. Even on this micro scale, his gestures are deliberate, tracing paths and delineating potential plots, trying to convey ideas of shared space, of setbacks, of public thoroughfares that wouldn't become choked by haphazard construction. He feels the skepticism in the elder's initial silence, a resistance to novelty. The city has always grown organically, shaped by need and convenience, not by abstract designs. His assumptions about the universal appeal of efficiency are proving difficult to translate. The elder's eyes follow his reed as it scratches across the clay, a slow, methodical journey over the soft, brown surface. The elder's fingers, gnarled and wise, occasionally tap near a feature on the tablet, a silent question about implication or practicality. He continues, using the clay as his whiteboard, his language a combination of simple Akkadian words he's slowly acquiring, and universal hand gestures. He points to how the existing, winding alleys trap stagnant water after a rain, hinting at the health implications, at the difficulty of moving goods, or even of responding to a fire. His suggested grid, however rudimentary, would introduce clarity, allowing for better drainage, for easier navigation. He knows that Hammurabi's administration was deeply concerned with order and justice, even down to property disputes and building codes. Perhaps this small, practical improvement, framed as a way to prevent problems rather than impose a foreign aesthetic, might find acceptance. Then it happens. A subtle shift, the elder's brow, initially furrowed in consideration, smooths slightly. His eyes, fixed on the clay tablet, hold a prolonged, thoughtful gaze. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he nods, a small, quiet dip of his head. It's a flicker of approval, a fleeting acknowledgement that this strange foreigner's ideas might hold some merit, some practical application. He feels a surge of quiet triumph, a small planning victory that resonates deeper than any grand project he'd ever completed in his own time. The heat of the Babylonian sun still beats down, and the city's clamor continues. But for a moment, a bridge has been built, however fragile, across millennia. He reflects that the truest form of communication isn't just about spoken words, but about shared understanding, a meeting of minds. Even when separated by 4,000 years, the reassuring weight of a well-laid stone settles into his hands, grounding him. It's a solid, cool mass of river rock, heavy and inert, yet pregnant with purpose. He fits it into the carefully dug trench, feeling the slight give of the wet earth and clay mortar beneath it. This week, he isn't just observing. He is physically participating, his body moving with a rhythm that is slowly becoming familiar. Alongside a small group of laborers, they are constructing a reinforced section of the canal bank, a project that grew organically from his sand sketches and the quiet nods of the elder. His urban planner's hands, once accustomed to keyboard and mouse, now feel the rough textures of mud brick, the cool dampness of fresh mortar, the abrasive grit of sand. He guides a laborer, demonstrating with gestures how to compact the earth around the stone, ensuring a stable base. He points to the next rock to be placed, indicating its orientation, trying to maintain a visual line that, to his modern eye, signifies strength and deliberate construction. He's applying the basic principles of civil engineering: load distribution, drainage, and structural integrity, but with the most rudimentary tools: a wooden mallet, a reed for smoothing, and the collective muscle of human labor. He finds a profound, almost spiritual, purpose in this tangible act of building. The chaotic sprawl of the city, once so disorienting, now begins to make a different kind of sense as he contributes to shaping a small, ordered part of it. He sees the immediate impact of their work: a section of bank less prone to erosion, a clearer path for water carriers, a small improvement that affects daily life. His modern assumptions about speed and efficiency are constantly challenged by the slow, painstaking pace. There are no machines to lift heavy stones, no concrete mixers, just human strength and cooperation. Yet, in this slowness, there is a deep satisfaction, a connection to the material, and the labor that his former desk job rarely offered. He observes the careful construction, noting that Babylonian builders often incorporated reeds and bitumen for waterproofing and reinforcement, particularly in crucial structures like canal linings or foundations. He realizes that while his ideas might seem novel, they are often echoing ancient practices, perhaps lost or localized knowledge. He is merely re-articulating the shared goal, the desire to build something lasting and functional, transcends the vast gulf of time and technology. His understanding of local perception shifts too. He is no longer just the strange foreigner, but a person contributing, a part of the collective effort, earning respect not through words, but through sweat and shared accomplishment. He finds himself exchanging silent, knowing glances with the mason from weeks prior, a bond forged in shared toil. The ceaseless sun warms his back. The scent of wet earth and exertion fills his nostrils, and the rhythmic thud of mallets echoes against the low murmur of the river. He feels a growing connection to this earth, to these materials, to the raw, honest work of making. This week, the weight of the past no longer feels like an impossible burden, but rather a foundation upon which something new, however small, can be built. He reflects that perhaps purpose is not found in grand designs alone, but in the quiet, resolute act of placing one stone upon another, contributing to a structure that outlives any single individual. The humid breeze off the Euphrates, carrying the faint scent of river mud and distant reeds, is a constant companion this week. He stands often by the riverbank, a small, smoothed piece of clay in hand, meticulously mapping its ebb and flow. He traces the river's broad, brown course, understanding that this isn't just a river. It's Babylon's lifeblood, its very reason for existence. He is learning to read its pulse. His urban planner's mind, accustomed to geographic information systems and hydrological models, is now reduced to direct observation. He watches the current, noting how it quickens or slows with the subtle shifts in temperature and upstream snowmelt. Invisible to the eye, but evident in the water's movement, he observes the marks on the riverbanks, where the water level has risen or fallen, creating transient, muddy fringes. He sees how the boats, flat-bottomed and laden with goods, navigate its channels, propelled by poles or simple sails. He records these observations, rudimentary data points, on his clay tablet, sketching crude symbols to denote changes, trying to capture the river's unpredictable but vital rhythms. He understands the immense power the Euphrates holds over the city. Its waters irrigate the vast agricultural lands surrounding Babylon, providing the food that sustains its massive population. It dictates trade routes, allowing goods from distant lands to reach the city's bustling markets. But it also poses a constant threat. He knows that historically, the Euphrates was prone to devastating floods, a major concern for Hammurabi's engineers and administrators. His modern knowledge of floodplain management and riparian buffer zones instantly makes him visualize ways to mitigate these risks, to protect the city from the very force that gives it life. His modern assumptions about predictable weather patterns and managed river systems are continually challenged by the raw, untamed nature of the Euphrates. He realizes the people here don't just live by the river, they live with it, in a constant negotiation between its bounty and its danger. He sees the protective embankments already in place in some areas, ancient defenses against the river's wrath, built through generations of collective effort. He mentally notes their construction, their weaknesses, and where his modern understanding of civil engineering might suggest improvements. Perhaps in the strategic placement of floodgates or the reinforcement of specific banks. He feels a growing respect for the ancient engineers who managed this colossal river, diverting its waters, controlling its flow, making the desert bloom. He remembers snippets from historical texts about Hammurabi's focus on irrigation and land management, his efforts to ensure the prosperity of his kingdom through careful stewardship of the river. This isn't just about survival. It's about thriving, about building a civilization on the fickle generosity of a powerful river. His current task feels like an intimate conversation with the land itself, a deeper understanding of the crucial interface between nature and urban development. This week, the river has taught him more about genuine sustainability and resilience than any textbook ever could. He reflects that perhaps the most profound planning comes not from imposing will, but from truly listening to the landscape, from understanding the ancient pulse that flows beneath everything. Laughter, warm and unrestrained, echoes from the communal oven, a sound that cuts through the usual market clamor and dust. This week, he finds himself drawn to this nexus of warmth and community, drawn by the irresistible aroma of baking bread and the sheer human connection emanating from it. The communal oven, a domed mud brick structure with a deep, fiery heart, is more than just a place to bake. It's a social hub, a vital piece of the city's informal infrastructure. He watches the women, and sometimes men, bringing their prepared dough, each marked subtly to distinguish it from the others. They slide their flatbreads into the scorching heat, waiting patiently, chatting, sharing news, and laughing. The warmth radiating from the oven, a stark contrast to the often chilly mornings or rapidly cooling evenings, feels inviting. He sits a little apart, observing, but feels less like an outsider than before. He has started to understand that these informal gathering places, these nodes of daily life, are as crucial to a city's functioning as any planned street or canal. His urban planner's eye, once solely focused on physical structures, is now learning to appreciate the invisible bonds of community that shape a city. He has started to share small gestures, a nod of acknowledgement, a brief smile. Someone offers him a piece of fresh baked bread, still warm and fragrant, without asking for anything in return. He accepts, expressing his thanks with the few Akkadian words he knows, his eyes conveying a deeper gratitude. In this simple act, a silent story is shared, one of survival, of shared humanity. These small interactions devoid of complex language, are building connections. His modern assumptions about individualism and private space are slowly being reshaped by the constant, communal nature of life in Babylon. Homes might offer privacy, but many essential tasks, from baking to water collection, are shared experiences, fostering interdependence. He realizes the efficiency of this communal system. Not every household needs its own oven, saving fuel, space, and labor. It's a natural form of resource sharing, an ancient solution to a modern problem of efficiency and sustainable living. This insight, coming from his professional background, makes him appreciate the inherent wisdom in such traditional practices. Practices that might seem primitive, but are remarkably effective. He watches a group of children chasing each other, their joyous shouts adding to the cacophony, their faces smudged with flour and dirt. Their innocence is a stark reminder of the enduring human spirit, capable of finding joy even in a world so dramatically different from his own. The heat from the oven warms his face, and the soft murmur of conversations washes over him. He feels a quiet sense of belonging, a human warmth that permeates the ancient world, bridging the immense gulf of time and culture. This week, the journey has shifted from mere survival to a deeper, more profound connection with the people themselves, the true heart of any city, ancient or modern. He reflects that perhaps the most important infrastructure is not made of brick and bitumen, but of shared moments, of simple kindness, and the enduring human need for connection. The crisp, dry feel of a clay tablet, heavy with inscribed cuneiform, presses into his hands this week. He pores over it, tracing the intricate wedges and lines, trying to decipher the abstract symbols that represent ancient laws. This isn't just any tablet. It's a copy of a section of Hammurabi's code, specifically those pertaining to property, construction, and water rights. He's found a key, a rigid framework that underpins the city's seemingly chaotic sprawl, the intricate dance of property lines. His urban planner's mind, accustomed to zoning ordinances and land use maps, begins to see patterns in the seemingly random placement of buildings. He realizes that while streets may wander, property boundaries are surprisingly well-defined, meticulously recorded on these very clay tablets. He studies clauses about disputes over shared walls, about the responsibilities of a builder if a house collapses, about the punishment for diverting another's irrigation water. This isn't an absence of planning. It's a different kind of planning, one embedded in legal statutes rather than abstract diagrams. He understands that the concept of ownership and responsibility for land was deeply ingrained in Babylonian society. Surveys were conducted, boundaries were marked with stone cuirass, and detailed records were kept. This legal framework, far from being a hindrance, actually facilitated urban development, providing a stable basis for construction and economic activity. His modern assumptions about property law, while more complex, share a common lineage with these ancient principles. The need for clarity, for justice, for preventing conflict over scarce resources. He sees how the law creates the order that allows a dense, complex city to function. His attempts to interpret the complex legal language are slow and frustrating. He understands that the code reflects a hierarchical society with different penalties for different social classes. This aspect clashes with his modern egalitarian ideals, yet he recognizes its pragmatic function within Babylonian society. He focuses on the practical implications for urban spaces, how building setbacks are implicitly handled by neighborly agreements and legal recourse, how water access is regulated to prevent scarcity, how infrastructure maintenance is ensured through community obligation and state oversight. He sees that the city isn't just a collection of buildings. It's a vast, interconnected web of legal obligations and rights. He feels a growing sense of awe for the foresight of Hammurabi's administration, for creating such a comprehensive legal system for a city and empire of this scale. The fact that a single code could govern everything from agricultural output to urban construction and even personal conduct is a testament to the sophistication of ancient governance. The weight of the clay tablet in his hands feels less like a relic and more like a living document, a testament to the enduring human need for order. This week, his understanding of Babylon has deepened, moving beyond its physical form to its underlying legal and social structure. He reflects that true urban planning isn't just about shaping physical space, but about crafting the invisible rules that allow human beings to coexist and thrive within it. The air cools, a welcome relief from the day's relentless heat, and a low, shimmering mirage begins to dance above the city walls as the sun dips towards the horizon. This week, he finds himself repeatedly drawn to this daily spectacle, watching the fiery orb descend, painting the sky in hues of orange, purple, and deep crimson. It's a breathtaking, unexpected beauty in this harsh, dust-choked land, a moment of profound peace amidst the constant clamor. He stands atop a slightly elevated mound, perhaps a ruin from an even older settlement or a strategically placed observation point, gazing out. The massive brick walls of Babylon, which once seemed merely defensive and imposing, now catch the golden light, transforming into ramparts of pure, radiant color. The distant ziggurat glows, a tiered mountain of light against the deepening sky. Below, the narrow alleys darken, shadows lengthening. But for these fleeting moments, the city seems to shimmer, suspended between earth and sky. His urban planner's eye, always seeking structure and efficiency, finds itself simply absorbing, witnessing a beauty that transcends utility. He observes the routines that accompany this daily transition. The market sounds slowly recede, replaced by the softer hum of evening preparations. The lowing of tethered animals, the murmur of voices from courtyards, the faint, comforting smell of cooking fires beginning to waft through the air. People move with a different pace, a sense of winding down, seeking shelter for the night. The harsh light of day, which revealed every imperfection, every pile of refuse, every struggle, gives way to a gentler illumination that softens the edges, cloaks the imperfections, and enhances the city's ancient mystique. His modern assumptions about artificial lighting and constant activity are completely inverted. Once the sun sets, the city plunges into near darkness, illuminated only by scattered oil lamps, the glow of hearths, and the brilliant, star-strewn sky. This forced deceleration, this nightly surrender to natural rhythms, has begun to exert its own subtle influence on him. He finds himself appreciating the quiet, the opportunity for reflection, the return to a more primal connection with the celestial cycle. The city, which during the day feels like a monument to human struggle, at sunset becomes a testament to human resilience and reverence. Its outlines softened, its spirit revealed. He feels a deep, unexpected calm settle over him, a sense of belonging that wasn't there in the first weeks. The beauty isn't just external. It's a reflection of his own internal adaptation, a softening of his rigid, modern worldview. He realizes that a city is not just a collection of buildings and infrastructure, but also a living, breathing entity that experiences moments of sublime beauty. Moments that nourish the soul as much as food and water nourish the body. This week, the sensory assault of Babylon has been tempered by moments of profound aesthetic wonder. He reflects that perhaps adaptation isn't just about survival, but about learning to see the grace, the unexpected gifts that even the most challenging environments can offer. The familiar grit of fine dust against his bare feet no longer bothers him. It's become a comforting, almost natural sensation this week. He walks the market with a newfound confidence, his stride purposeful, no longer hesitant or lost. The jarring cacophony, once overwhelming, now registers as a vibrant, intricate symphony of daily life. He navigates the dense throngs of people, the jostling animals, and the myriad of stalls with an ease that would have been impossible just weeks ago. Babylon's dust, ever present and inescapable, now feels less like an invasion and more like home. His urban planner's eye still sees the inherent disorganization, the lack of what he would call efficiency, but it's no longer a source of panic. Instead, He observes with a deeper understanding, an appreciation for the organic flow. He notices the subtle cues that signal the best path, the unwritten rules of negotiation, the established rhythms of trade. He knows where the best dates are sold, where the water is cleanest, where the scribes gather for their daily duties. His modern assumptions about structured planning have softened, giving way to a more fluid, adaptive understanding of urban dynamics. He is no longer trying to impose a grid, but to understand the existing, invisible one. He finds himself anticipating movements, instinctively sidestepping a laden donkey or weaving around a cluster of gossiping women without conscious thought. His body has learned the language of the crowd, the silent communication of a city that relies on proximity and constant interaction. He responds to a nod from a vendor he has bought bread from, a brief, shared moment of recognition. He points a finger, indicating the location of a particular spice. For a lost-looking newcomer, a small, almost reflexive gesture that demonstrates his growing integration. His skills, once abstract, are now grounded in direct experience, in the practicalities of navigating a truly ancient metropolis. The city, with all its sights, sounds, and smells, has shifted from a threatening foreign entity to a complex, living organism he is learning to be a part of. The scorching sun, the thick smoke, the pervasive dust, these are no longer adversaries, but simply elements of the environment to be managed and lived with. He understands that while the city might lack formal zoning, a powerful, unspoken social zoning exists. Guilds of craftsmen often cluster together. Residential areas have their own distinct characters, and the temple precinct stands apart in its grandeur and sanctity. This is planning through custom, tradition, and necessity. He feels a lightness in his step, a sense of belonging that is both surprising and comforting. The fear, the initial sense of being a stranger in a strange land, has largely dissipated, replaced by a quiet confidence. He still thinks about his old life, but the sharp edges of longing have blurred, softened by the relentless, immersive present. This week, the most profound adaptation isn't just about survival, but about the profound, almost imperceptible shift in his own identity. He reflects that perhaps home isn't just a place, but a state of being, a feeling of ease that can be found even in the most unexpected corners of time. The sickening, cloying stench of disease, thick and inescapable, hangs heavy in the air this week, particularly around the more neglected corners of the city. He observes the choked canals, once gleaming arteries of life, now stagnant with refuse, their surfaces often slick with an unsettling green film. The vibrant life he has grown accustomed to seeing around the waterways is diminished, replaced by a brooding quiet. punctuated by the occasional cough or moan from within nearby dwellings. His urban planner's mind, trained in public health and environmental engineering, screams for intervention, a desperate plea for action in a world that doesn't yet understand the invisible enemy. He sees the outward signs of illness, pallid faces, listless children, the slow, shuffling gait of those suffering from an unseen ailment. He knows, with the chilling certainty of modern medical knowledge, that the stagnant water is a breeding ground for pathogens, a conduit for disease to spread rapidly through a dense population. The irony is bitter. The very canals that bring life-giving water also, through improper management, carry death. He looks at the people drawing water from these same fouled channels, their desperation outweighing any awareness of the invisible threat. His modern assumptions about germ theory and potable water feel like a heavy burden, a secret knowledge he cannot effectively communicate. He mentally outlines a plan, dredge the canals, establish clear points for drawing drinking water separate from waste disposal. Perhaps even introduce a rudimentary system for filtering or boiling water for general consumption. He pictures clear, flowing water, clean streets, a healthier populace. But these are modern solutions, requiring an understanding of microscopic organisms and public health that simply doesn't exist. He thinks of the efforts in his own time to combat cholera or typhoid, the massive infrastructure projects, the public education campaigns. Here, such an undertaking feels impossible, a whisper against a roaring tide of ancient ignorance. He observes the limited, often ritualistic, attempts at healing. Priests perform incantations, offerings are made to deities, and herbal remedies are applied. These are the available solutions, deeply embedded in belief and tradition. His professional ethics clash with the reality. He possesses knowledge that could save lives, but lacks the means to implement it, or even to explain it in a way that would be understood or accepted. The very structure of the city, with its densely packed houses and open channels, facilitates the rapid spread of contagion, a nightmare for any public health official. The relentless sun continues to beat down, baking the stench deeper into the mud, exacerbating the conditions. He feels a deep, agonizing helplessness, a frustration that goes beyond linguistic barriers or technological gaps. It's the weight of knowing, of seeing the impending suffering and being unable to prevent it. This week, the beauty and adaptation he had begun to appreciate in Babylon have been overshadowed by the stark, terrifying reality of ancient disease and the limits of his intervention. He reflects that the greatest challenge in time travel isn't just about surviving the past, but about enduring the profound moral burden of possessing knowledge that cannot save. The dry, dusty air chafes his throat, a physical manifestation of the moral weight that presses down on him this week. It's the weight of silent knowledge, of seeing suffering and possessing solutions that are alien to this time. He walks past the temple, where a small group gathers, their faces etched with concern, as a priest performs a purification ritual, hoping to appease angry gods or ward off malevolent spirits. He knows with an agonizing certainty that their understanding of the affliction is fundamentally flawed, and their remedies, while comforting, are utterly ineffective against the true enemy. Microscopic pathogens. His urban planner's mind, accustomed to public health campaigns and evidence-based interventions, grapples with a profound ethical dilemma. He holds knowledge that could save lives. Simple concepts like boiling water or separating sewage from drinking sources. He could try to demonstrate these, to explain the invisible agents of disease. But what would be the cost? Would such radical ideas be accepted or dismissed as madness? Would they even be understood? More critically, would such an intervention alter the course of history, creating a butterfly effect that ripples through millennia with unforeseen consequences? His modern assumptions about the scientific method and universal truth clash violently with the deeply ingrained spiritual and traditional beliefs of ancient Babylon, to suggest that a demon isn't causing illness, but rather tiny, unseen creatures in the water, would be to challenge their entire worldview, to undermine the authority of their priests and the fabric of their society. The danger is not just to the timeline, but to himself. He could be perceived as a heretic, a sorcerer, or a dangerous fool. The very act of attempting to help could lead to his own demise, without actually improving conditions for the people he wishes to save. He spends hours observing the daily routines, looking for a subtle, natural way to introduce change without causing disruption. Could he subtly suggest improvements to well design? Could he demonstrate the benefits of boiling water through personal example, hoping others would mimic the practice out of curiosity? But even these small actions feel fraught with peril. A tiny pebble dropped into a vast, ancient pond, potentially creating ripples beyond comprehension. The responsibility is immense, a crushing weight that makes every breath feel heavy. The distant sounds of the city, the market chatter, the rhythmic drumming from a temple, all blend into a background hum that seems to mock his internal torment. He feels the isolation of his unique burden, a modern mind trapped in an ancient world, unable to truly connect his most profound knowledge with the needs of the present. This week, the most intense battle isn't with the elements or the challenges of daily life, but with his own conscience, with the agonizing choice between intervention and preservation, between saving a few lives and safeguarding an entire timeline. He reflects that perhaps the true test of adaptation isn't just about changing oneself, but about learning to live with the impossible limits of one's own power. The air around them is thick with the sweet, cloying scent of burning incense, a steady stream rising from a small brazier. He is close to the temple precinct this week, close enough to the priest who listens with a rigid, almost imperious posture, his face unyielding. He keeps his voice low, almost a whisper, as he traces lines on the dusty ground with a stick, attempting to illustrate his ideas for improved water channels, elevated conduits that might carry cleaner water above the muck of the streets. His throat feels dry, not just from the dust, but from the raw fear that prickles at the back of his neck. His urban planner's mind, buzzing with solutions for water purity and efficient distribution, carefully outlines how raising certain parts of the water pathways could reduce contamination, how guiding water more directly from the main canal might lessen the spread of disease. He gestures towards an area he knows is prone to stagnation after heavy rains, then draws a raised, covered channel on the ground, a vision of clear, flowing water. He knows the Babylonians were masters of irrigation and canals. This isn't about inventing a new technology, but about optimizing existing principles, applying his modern understanding of hygiene. The priest watches his every movement, his gaze unwavering, his expression unreadable. There is a deep skepticism in the slight tightening of his lips, in the way his hand instinctively brushes against a small clay amulet hanging from his neck. To the priest, water is not just a physical necessity, it is a sacred element, a gift from the gods. To tamper with its natural flow, to suggest radical changes to a system long blessed by the deities, might be seen as an act of hubris, an offense against the divine order. His modern assumptions about secular engineering and public utility are in direct opposition to this profound spiritual reverence. He feels the immense chasm between their worldviews. He tries to frame his suggestions in terms the priest might grasp. He points to the purity of the sky, then to the flowing water in his imagined channel, attempting to convey a concept of cleanliness that is both practical and perhaps spiritually appealing. He demonstrates how covered channels could protect the water from evil spirits or unwanted influences, a translation of germ theory into ancient superstition, a desperate attempt to bridge the gap. He knows the immense power of the priests, their role not just in ritual, but in interpreting the will of the gods for the entire city, including its physical welfare. To gain their approval, or at least avoid their condemnation, is paramount. The priest remains silent for a long moment, his eyes scanning the crude drawing on the ground, then looking at the surrounding bustling city. He makes a slow, deliberate gesture towards the great ziggurat, a silent reminder of the gods' omnipresence and the consequences of offending them. A cold dread settles over him. He understands the priest's hesitation, the deep-seated fear of altering ancient ways, of inviting the wrath of the very gods who bestow the life-giving waters. He has presented his plans, not with bold confidence, but with a plea, a silent supplication for understanding. This week, the weight of his knowledge feels like a perilous secret, and the act of sharing it, however subtly, an act of immense risk. He reflects that progress, even when it means saving lives, must sometimes navigate not just physical obstacles, but the even more formidable mountains of ancient belief and divine authority. The texture of the moist earth beneath his heel, compacted and firm, brings with it an uneasy thrill this week. He stands on the edge of a newly dug trench, not a massive project, but a carefully selected channel leading from a cleaner segment of the main canal to a small, newly constructed communal water point. The priest, after days of silent consideration and consulting other elders, has given a grudging, tacit approval for this small, experimental project. It's a seed of change, a modern idea carefully planted in ancient soil, and the risk feels palpable. His urban planner's mind is a flurry of calculations, albeit in cubits and fingers. He measures the slope of the channel with his eye, ensuring a gentle, consistent gradient for optimal flow. He supervises the laborers, demonstrating the importance of smooth, level sides to prevent pooling and to minimize debris collection. He points to the reed mats being placed along the bottom, then covered with bitumen, an ancient waterproofing technique he has come to appreciate. This isn't just about moving water. It's about moving cleaner water, a concept he's trying to subtly embed in the construction. His modern understanding of fluid dynamics and public health is being translated into simple, actionable steps. He finds himself constantly scanning the faces of the laborers, looking for signs of acceptance, confusion, or resistance. They follow his gestures, often with a quizzical expression, but they follow their own knowledge, born of generations of canal building, is immense. But his particular emphasis on smooth linings and dedicated points for water collection seems subtly different. He frames it in terms of efficiency and less effort for water carriers rather than germs, a more understandable benefit for them. His assumption about the universal desire for efficiency is proving to be a useful bridge across the cultural divide. His modern assumptions about the scientific method are constantly challenged by the reliance on tradition and belief. He knows that the success of this project will be attributed to favorable omens or divine blessing, not to precise engineering. But if it works, if the water at the new tap point is visibly clearer, and perhaps, subtly, leads to less illness, then the practice might spread. He understands that cultural change is incremental, not revolutionary. He feels like a quiet revolutionary, a silent subversive, planting small seeds of rational thought within a fertile, ancient landscape of faith. The sun beats down, warming the newly laid earth, and the faint smell of bitumen rises, a strangely comforting odor that signifies protection and permanence. He feels the immense responsibility of his actions, knowing that even a small improvement could have ripple effects, altering daily lives in ways he can only guess. This week, the journey has shifted from mere observation to active, albeit cautious, intervention. He reflects that perhaps the greatest impact isn't made by grand pronouncements, but by the quiet, diligent effort of showing, rather than telling, how a small change can lead to a significant difference, even if the underlying science remains unseen. The sharp, satisfying scrape of a wooden shovel breaking into the hard, sun-baked earth is the sound that defines this week. He watches, a silent witness at first, then a quiet participant, as laborers begin to dig a new well. Not just any well, but one he specifically proposed, strategically located away from obvious contamination sources, and designed with a more protected, raised lip. It's a moment of profound significance, a world subtly shifting, a modern idea slowly taking root in ancient soil. His urban planner's mind, accustomed to seeing projects move from blueprint to reality, feels a mixture of awe and trepidation. He'd carefully selected the site, using his intuitive understanding of groundwater flow and surface drainage, a skill that required no modern tools, just keen observation. He'd made his case, not with scientific jargon, but with practical arguments about clearer water, less effort for carriers, and a subtle appeal to the purity that the gods might favor. The approval, hard one, came from the elder, and he suspects, influenced by the priest, who perhaps saw a practical solution blessed by a fortuitous omen. He observes the careful excavation. These people are masters of digging wells, their techniques honed over millennia. He learns from them, watching how they shore up the sides with woven reeds and bitumen as they descend, preventing collapse in the soft, alluvial soil. He offers small, non-disruptive suggestions. A slightly wider shaft at the top for easier access and maintenance. A more robust lining to prevent seepage. His modern assumptions about efficiency and long-term planning are now finding a constructive outlet, integrated into existing, ancient practices rather than imposed from above. His role has evolved from a detached observer to a trusted, if peculiar, advisor. The laborers listen to his gestures, sometimes exchanging curious glances, but they execute his suggestions with practiced skill. He notices a subtle shift in their interactions, a growing acceptance that allows him to contribute without causing friction. His presence, once a source of mild curiosity, is now becoming a part of their daily routine. He understands that genuine integration means not just surviving, but actively contributing to the welfare of the community. Even if his motivations and underlying knowledge remain a secret, the sun beats down on the construction site. The dust rises with each shovelful of earth, and the rhythmic grunts of the workers fill the air. He sees the outline of the well taking shape, a small but tangible improvement to the city's infrastructure. It's a testament to incremental change, to the power of persistent, patient suggestion. This week, the weight of his hidden knowledge feels less like a burden and more like a potential for quiet, ethical transformation. He reflects that perhaps the greatest architectural feats are not always the tallest ziggurats, but the subtle, underlying improvements that uplift the daily lives of ordinary people. Slowly and without fanfare, changing the world one well at a time. A constant hum of activity, a vibrant murmur of voices, now emanates from the vicinity of the new well. This week, the unintended consequence of his successful project is abundantly clear: an unforeseen rush of people to the cleaner water source. While the sight of individuals patiently waiting to draw visibly clearer water brings a quiet satisfaction, the sheer density of the crowd creates entirely new sanitation challenges, a problem his urban planner's mind immediately recognizes with a jolt of concern. He observes the ground around the wellhead. What was once dry, packed earth is now turning into a muddy, churned-up area from constant foot traffic and spilled water. The overflow, once minor, now forms small, stagnant puddles where flies gather. The convenience of a cleaner, more accessible water source has drawn people from farther afield, creating a new focal point in the urban fabric. But without the accompanying infrastructure to manage the increased activity, his modern assumptions about anticipating user load and planning for ancillary services are hitting hard against the reality of ancient resource limitations and reactive planning. His professional eye immediately sees the potential for problems. The concentrated foot traffic compacts the soil, making drainage worse. The stagnant water, while not from the well itself, still creates unsanitary conditions nearby, a potential bridge for disease transmission. He thinks of paved surfaces, storm drains, and public waste bins from his own time, imagining how easily these issues would be mitigated. Here, the solutions are far more rudimentary, requiring manual labor and a shift in communal habits. He sketches on his omnipresent clay tablet, trying to illustrate a paved area around the well, perhaps with a slight gradient to channel excess water away, or even a simple stone basin for collection. He realizes that every solution creates a new problem, a fundamental truth of urban planning in any era. The success of the well, a small victory for public health, has now presented a challenge for public space management. His modern mind wants to zone the area, to restrict certain activities, but he understands that such authoritarian measures would be alien and likely unenforceable. Instead, he must find solutions that integrate with the existing social fabric, that are simple to implement and maintain with the available resources. This requires not just engineering skill, but a deep understanding of human behavior and communal consensus. The sun beats down, quickly drying the outer edges of the mud, but the center remains perpetually damp. He feels the persistent hum of the crowd, a mix of gratitude for the water and the burgeoning disorder around it. This week, the weight of his ethical intervention has shifted from the fear of alteration to the responsibility of managing its consequences. He reflects that true planning is an ongoing conversation, a constant adaptation, and that even the best intentions can lead to unforeseen challenges. The journey continues, not just in making improvements, but in anticipating the ripples that each change sends through the complex, living organism that is Babylon. The subtle shift in the market's murmur, a new undertone of whispers and wary glances, is what registers with him this week. His simple, well-intentioned design for the new communal well, meant to provide cleaner water for all, has inadvertently disrupted ancient social hierarchies, creating ripples of discontent. He feels the weight of it, a growing unease in his stomach, as he senses eyes on him, not with curiosity, but with a nascent suspicion. He observes the lines at the well. Previously, wealthier households might send slaves or servants to collect water from a preferred, cleaner source, or even have water delivered. Now, the new well, with its visibly purer water and easier access, attracts everyone. This means that the mistress of a modest household stands in line beside the servant of a wealthier family, and the common laborer draws water from the same source as a minor official. His modern assumption of equitable access, a cornerstone of his profession, has directly challenged the deeply entrenched class distinctions of Babylonian society. His professional eye sees efficiency, improved public health, and a more streamlined process, but the faces of some of the wealthier citizens, those who typically had privileges, betray irritation. He notices their dismissive gestures towards the commoners, their subtle attempts to push ahead in line, and the glares directed towards him, the foreign instigator of this disorder. His planning victory is revealing itself to be a social misstep, a reminder that urban design is never just about physical structures, but about the delicate balance of human relationships and established power dynamics. He reflects on Hammurabi's code, which he had studied just weeks ago, with its explicit distinctions between different social classes, free citizens, commoners, and slaves, and the differing legal rights and responsibilities assigned to each. His well, by making a vital resource equally accessible, implicitly undermines a system where access to quality goods and services often defined one's social standing. He hadn't considered the social geography of water, only the physical. His modern ideal of universal service delivery is proving to be a revolutionary act, perceived as an affront by those who benefited from the previous, less equitable arrangements. The sun continues its relentless beat, and the water flows clean and clear from the well. But the air around it feels charged with an unseen tension, a subtle discord. He feels the isolation of his unintentional disruption, the realization that even the smallest, most beneficial change can upset a delicate, ancient balance. This week, the challenge is no longer just about adapting to the past, but about navigating its complex social rules, rules he has only just begun to understand and inadvertently to challenge. He reflects that true urban planning must always consider not just the bricks and canals, but the invisible, intricate web of human power, privilege, and social order that underpins every city. A sharp, uncomfortable pang of guilt settles in his gut this week, a constant companion that overshadows the previous satisfaction. The well, a testament to his modern wisdom, now feels like a source of unforeseen chaos, not just cleaner water. He observes the simmering tensions around the site, the longer queues, the jostling for position, the visible frustration on the faces of those who feel their established order has been subtly, irrevocably altered. He questions his actions, a heavy ethical calculus. Was his modern wisdom a blessing to the many, or a curse to the established few? A destabilizing force in a world he barely understands. His urban planner's mind, accustomed to public consultation and impact assessments, now processes the subtle signs of social friction. He sees the averted gazes, the tightened shoulders, the occasional sharp gesture directed not just at other water drawers, but sometimes in his general direction. The priest, too, seems more distant, his nods less frequent, his eyes holding a new, speculative glint. The unintended consequences of his intervention are clear. He addressed a physical problem, but created a social one, a classic urban planning dilemma magnified by millennia. He grapples with the complexity. On one hand, more people now have access to cleaner water, a fundamental improvement in public health that, in his modern estimation, outweighs any social inconvenience. On the other hand, He has, however unintentionally, injected an element of discord into a community that values stability and tradition, and whose social strata are deeply rooted. He wonders if he violated an unspoken rule, not just of historical non-interference, but of communal etiquette. His modern assumptions about the universal good, about progress, are clashing with the ancient reality of a hierarchical society where good often meant maintaining a delicate, unequal balance. He tries to imagine how to mitigate the new tensions. Could designated times for different groups ease the congestion? Could a second well be built, dispersing the crowds? But each solution brings its own set of challenges, requiring resources, labor, and most importantly, social consensus that he may not be able to garner. He realizes the hubris of his initial thought process. The way he applied a modern, egalitarian lens to a profoundly unequal society without fully grasping the implications. Hammurabi's code, with its distinct legal provisions for different social classes, flashes in his mind again, a stark reminder of the structured inequality he has inadvertently challenged. The sun continues to bake the ground around the well, and the murmur of the crowd, while still present, now carries an undercurrent of impatience. He feels the isolation of his unique position, a solitary figure bearing the weight of his own well-intentioned disruption. This week, the journey has become less about physical adaptation and more about a deep, internal ethical reckoning. He reflects that the greatest lesson in time travel isn't just about understanding the past, but about understanding the profound, often painful responsibility that comes with wielding modern knowledge in an ancient world, and the true cost of disrupting a delicate balance, however imperfect that balance might be. The rough texture of a mud brick in his hand feels less grounding this week, heavier with unspoken tension. His friendship with the mason, a bond forged over shared labor and silent understanding, strains visibly. The mason's brow is often furrowed, his gaze distant, and the easy camaraderie that once flowed between them has been replaced by an uncomfortable silence. His urban planner's innovations, once cautiously accepted, are now subtly questioning the mason's traditional methods, creating an invisible rift between them. He observes the mason working, his movements precise and efficient, but with a new stiffness, a subtle resistance. When he tries to demonstrate a slightly different way of compacting the earth around the wellhead to improve drainage, suggesting a technique he believes is superior, the mason nods curtly, then continues with his accustomed method, his hands moving with an almost defiant rhythm. The unspoken message is clear. This is how it has always been done. This is my way. His modern assumptions about iterative improvement and shared knowledge are clashing with the ancient value of established tradition and individual mastery. His suggestions, born of scientific principle and engineering efficiency, are perceived not as helpful guidance, but as implicit criticism. He sees the frustration in the mason's posture, the subtle downturn of his mouth. The mason is a master craftsman, his skills honed over a lifetime, passed down through generations. To have a foreigner, a man who initially knew nothing of building in Babylon, suggest improvements to his fundamental methods must feel like a profound insult, a challenge to his professional identity and expertise. His urban planner's desire to optimize and standardize is inadvertently undermining the very pride of craftsmanship that sustains ancient building. He reflects on the nature of ancient professions. A mason isn't just a laborer, he's an integral part of a long-standing tradition. His status defined by his skill and adherence to proven methods. His modern approach, focused on universal principles and replicability, risks devaluing that individual inherited knowledge. He remembers the Hammurabi Code, with its detailed laws about builders' responsibilities and their punishments for failure, underscoring the high stakes of their craft and the importance of reliability over novelty. His modern logic is efficient, but perhaps socially disruptive. The sun beats down on the construction site. The rhythmic thud of mallets now seems less harmonious, more isolated. He feels a deep sadness, a pang of regret for the strained bond. He had hoped his knowledge would bring only benefit, but it has brought division, fracturing a nascent friendship. This week, the challenge isn't just about building physical structures, but about mending social ones. He reflects that true wisdom in time travel isn't just about understanding technology or even culture, but about recognizing the delicate balance of human relationships and the profound cost of inadvertently challenging another's deeply held traditions and hard-won expertise. The cool, heavy stillness of the elders' meeting room, a stark contrast to the city's usual clamor, presses in on him this week. He stands before a semicircle of city elders, their faces grave, their eyes measuring. The familiar elder from weeks past sits among them, his expression unreadable. This is the moment of reckoning, the consequence of his well-intentioned interventions. He feels a dry knot of apprehension in his stomach, but also a quiet resolve. He has to accept responsibility for the ripple effects of his planning. He listens intently to the murmurs, piecing together the Akkadian words he now understands. The complaints are clear: the congestion around the new well, the grumbling from those whose social standing feels diminished, the subtle challenge to established customs. He understands that while the cleaner water is appreciated, the disruption to the delicate social order is not. His modern assumption that public good automatically outweighs social friction is being rigorously tested. And in this ancient court, it's failing. His urban planner's mind, trained in accountability and ethical practice, recognizes the necessity of owning his actions. He makes a slow, deliberate gesture of humility, bowing his head slightly, trying to convey respect for their authority and regret for the unintended consequences. He points to the well on his clay map, then sweeps his hand over the surrounding area, indicating the increased foot traffic and the changing social dynamics. He sketches out some remedial ideas, designated areas for water collection, perhaps a simple schedule for different groups, an attempt to restore a semblance of order and deference without abandoning the benefits of clean water. He reflects on the concept of consequences, a central theme in urban planning. Every decision, however small, creates ripples. In his modern world, those ripples are managed through feedback loops, adjustments, and community engagement. Here, the feedback is direct, often uncomfortably so, and the consequences are immediate and deeply personal. He remembers the harsh punishments outlined in Hammurabi's code for those who caused harm or neglected their duties. He feels vulnerable, exposed, but also determined to find a solution that respects both ancient traditions and modern humanitarian principles. The elders watch him, their faces impassive, absorbing his gestures, his silent acknowledgement of responsibility. The air remains heavy, but there's a subtle shift, a softening, perhaps, in the intensity of their gaze. He doesn't know what their judgment will be, what the personal cost of his actions might become, but he knows he cannot deny the truth of what he set in motion. This week, the journey has confronted him with the profound, inescapable reality of accountability. He reflects that perhaps true leadership, even in an ancient world, isn't about always being right, but about acknowledging one's impact, learning from mistakes, and striving to make amends, even when the path forward is uncertain. The cool, clear sound of water flowing steadily through the newly reinforced canal is a melody of success this week. He stands by its edge, watching the smooth current, a testament to shared effort and a hard one compromise with the elders. Beside him, the mason, his face now softened, meets his gaze. It's a profound connection, a silent understanding passing between them, the warmth of shared accomplishment radiating in the Babylonian sun. The tension that had strained their friendship has finally begun to recede, replaced by a renewed, deeper respect. He observes the careful work. The canal banks, reinforced with stone and bitumen according to his adapted suggestions, are holding firm. The water, channeled more efficiently, flows with a vigor that minimizes stagnation. He sees people drawing water, not from the new well, but from this improved canal section, the source now visibly cleaner, its flow more reliable. His urban planner's mind registers this as a success, not just of engineering, but of adaptation, of finding a way to implement modern principles within ancient constraints. He compromised on the well's universality, suggesting specific times for certain groups, a practical solution that respected the existing social hierarchy while still improving access for many. The mason points to the smooth flow, then gestures with a slight nod to the stronger banks. His face holds a quiet satisfaction. He has adopted some of the foreigner's suggestions, integrated them into his own traditional methods, and seen the benefits. His professional pride, once bruised, now seems revitalized by the visible success. The silence between them is no longer awkward, but comfortable, filled with the unspoken language of two craftsmen who understand the challenges and rewards of building. This shared gaze, a moment of mutual recognition and respect, speaks volumes more than any words. His modern assumptions about technological superiority have been tempered by the reality of ancient ingenuity and the wisdom of established practices. He realizes that progress is not always about replacing the old with the new, but often about enhancing what already exists, working with the grain of a culture rather than against it. The Babylonians were already masters of water management. His role was simply to offer a new perspective, a subtle refinement that dovetailed with their existing skills. This experience has humbled him, taught him the value of collaborative problem solving across time. The sun warms his back. The scent of damp earth and clean water fills the air, and the distant city sounds seem to carry a more harmonious note. He feels a deep sense of peace, a quiet joy in seeing the tangible results of his efforts and in the rekindling of a precious human connection. This week, the journey has brought him full circle, from the chaos of early arrival to the quiet satisfaction of meaningful contribution and restored relationships. He reflects that perhaps the greatest impact in any time isn't just about the structures one builds, but about the bridges one builds between people, bridging gaps of culture, time, and understanding through shared effort and mutual respect. A cool evening breeze carries the distant, faint sound of the river and the ever-present hum of the city, but it also carries a deep, quiet ache this week. He feels a profound yearning, a sharp pang of longing for his past life, the familiar comfort of his home, the instantaneous communication, the effortless convenience of modern technology. Yet, as he looks out over the burgeoning city, its myriad challenges and urgent needs pull him just as strongly, creating a wrenching duality within him. He sits on his rooftop, gazing at the sprawling expanse of mud brick and winding alleys, now softened by the twilight. He mentally superimposes his own city's grid over this ancient landscape, recalling the ease of navigating paved roads, the luxury of clean, piped water, the silent efficiency of waste disposal systems. He remembers late-night calls with colleagues, the satisfaction of a complex urban model coming together on a screen, the simple joy of a hot shower. These memories are vivid, almost painful in their clarity, a stark contrast to the demanding, primal reality of his daily existence in Babylon. His urban planner's mind, however, cannot simply disengage. He sees the areas ripe for improvement. Congested bottlenecks, inefficient resource distribution points, the ever-present public health risks. He has a deeper understanding now of the city's pulse, its vulnerabilities, its potential for growth and suffering. The communal well, the improved canal section, these small victories represent a tangible difference, a direct impact on lives. The urge to continue, to apply his knowledge to more of Babylon's problems, is powerful, a professional imperative that transcends time itself. His modern assumptions about personal choice and individual freedom are at the heart of this internal conflict. He knows he is a stranger here, an anomaly, yet he has found a role, a purpose. His skills, once abstract, are now literally shaping the physical environment and, subtly, the social fabric. He feels a moral responsibility to use his unique knowledge, even if it means sacrificing the lingering hope of returning to his own time. Hammurabi's reign, a period of immense growth and administrative reform, suggests a system that is open, however cautiously, to improvements that serve the king and the gods. The stars, brilliant and countless in the ancient sky, seem to mock his internal struggle with their indifferent, eternal gaze. He is caught between two worlds, two versions of himself, the man who yearns for the past and the man who is urgently needed in this present. This week, the journey has brought him to a profound crossroads, an emotional and ethical reckoning. He reflects that perhaps the greatest test of humanity isn't just about survival, but about choosing between the comfort of what was and the compelling, often painful, responsibility of what could be. When faced with the urgent needs of a different time, the sound of children's laughter, unrestrained and joyful, drifts towards him, carried on the warm afternoon breeze. This week, he watches families gather in the revitalized public spaces he subtly helped design. A clearer, less cluttered square near the improved canal, a shaded area near the new well where people now linger. It's a profound moment of witnessing, a deep sense of belonging settling over him as he sees the tangible human impact of his quiet interventions. He observes the scene with a quiet satisfaction. The area, once a haphazard mix of activity and refuse, now functions as a true communal space. The clearer pathways, the better drainage around the well, the small, shaded seating areas he'd suggested with gestures and sand sketches, have transformed simple utility into social amenity. Children play a game of tag, weaving through adults who chat while drawing water or mending nets. The air smells cleaner here, a faint whiff of fresh water mingling with the distant scent of bread from the communal oven. His urban planner's eye sees the fundamental human need for gathering spaces, for interaction, and the deep satisfaction of seeing those needs met. His initial assumptions about Babylonian public life, once colored by perceptions of chaos and strict hierarchy, have been broadened. He realizes that even in an ancient, rigidly structured society, there is a vibrant desire for communal life, for places to gather, share, and simply be. His subtle improvements, designed for efficiency and health, have unexpectedly fostered community, creating spaces that feel more inviting and comfortable. He understands that good urban planning across any era is about creating environments where people can thrive, not just survive. He sees the elder sitting on a low stone bench, observing the lively scene with a placid smile, perhaps acknowledging, without words, the positive shift. The mason, too, passes by, offering a slight nod of recognition, a renewed understanding passing between them. His role has become less about imposing ideas and more about facilitating existing human needs, guiding natural processes towards more beneficial outcomes. He reflects on how his profession, in its purest form, is about improving the human experience and seeing it manifest so clearly, so simply, here in ancient Babylon, is a powerful affirmation. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in soft hues, casting long shadows across the square. The sounds of conversation and laughter gradually soften, but the sense of warmth, of human connection, remains. He feels deeply rooted in this moment, in this place, a connection that transcends his own time. This week, the journey has brought him not just professional satisfaction, but a profound emotional integration. He reflects that perhaps the deepest sense of belonging doesn't come from where you originated, but from where your actions make a tangible difference, from the silent, shared joy of a community made a little better by your presence. The cool, smooth surface of a larger, freshly prepared clay tablet spreads before him this week. With a carefully sharpened reed, he traces the evolving map of the city, not just as it is, but as it is becoming. He meticulously adds the new well, the improved canal section, the subtly realigned pathways, the clearer public space. It's a tangible legacy, a visual record of his work. And as his finger moves across the clay, he feels an undeniable, almost physical link, irrevocably linking him to this ancient place, to its future. His urban planner's mind, accustomed to seeing cities as dynamic, evolving organisms, now sees Babylon through a new lens, one where his own hand has directly, however subtly, guided its growth. He compares this tablet to his earlier, crude sketches, noting the progression from abstract ideas to concrete changes. The areas he once found chaotic now possess a nascent order, a deliberate articulation of space that reflects both ancient wisdom and his modern input. This isn't just a map, it's a testament to incremental transformation, a silent dialogue between two eras of urban design. He understands the significance of this act of mapping. In ancient Babylon, scribes meticulously recorded everything, from legal contracts to astronomical observations. To chart the city's physical form, to delineate its changes, is an act of historical preservation and future planning, a way to codify new realities. His contribution, once a private mental exercise, is now etched into the city's official record, becoming a part of its recorded history, a quiet testament to the butterfly effect of his presence. His modern assumptions about data visualization and spatial analysis are finding their most primitive, yet profound, expression here. He reflects on how his profession, in its essence, is about foresight, about envisioning a better future and laying the groundwork for it. Here, the future is measured not in decades or centuries, but in the immediate improvement of daily life, in the subtle shift of habit, in the reduction of hardship. He sees the city not as a fixed entity, but as a living landscape constantly being shaped by its inhabitants, by its rulers, and now by the quiet, persistent influence of a stranger from another time. The act of drawing, of formalizing these changes, feels like a sacred trust, a commitment. The sun streams through the open roof, illuminating the soft clay, and the faint smell of damp earth from the drying tablet fills his nostrils. He feels a quiet sense of permanence, a profound connection to the ongoing narrative of this ancient city. This week, the journey has brought him to a realization of his own unique, albeit secret, place in history. He reflects that perhaps true immortality isn't found in returning home, but in leaving an indelible mark, however subtle, on the world you inhabit, a mark that resonates across the vast, indifferent expanse of time, linking you to a future you will never see. The familiar scent of baked mud and distant incense, once alien, now carries a profound sense of belonging. This week, the thought of leaving this vibrant, challenging, and subtly changed Babylon feels like a profound betrayal. He stands on his rooftop at dawn, watching the city awaken, the first rays of sun illuminating the ziggurat, and a deep, unexpected ache settles in his chest. His modern life, once a vivid memory, now feels distant, almost unreal, while this ancient world, with all its harshness, has become his reality, his home. He surveys the changes, both large and small, that his presence has wrought, the clearer pathways, the the cleaner water from the well and canal, the sense of community in the revitalized public spaces. He sees the ripple effects of his quiet interventions, the subtle shifts in daily life, the unspoken gratitude from those whose lives are a little easier, a little healthier. His urban planner's mind acknowledges the scale of his impact, however constrained, and the undeniable fact that he has become an integral part of this city's ongoing story. To simply vanish now, to abandon the projects, the people, the nascent future he has helped shape, feels unthinkable. His professional ethics, once defined by modern codes of conduct and client satisfaction, are now rooted in something far more primal: the direct human responsibility he feels for the welfare of this community. He knows there is still so much to do, so many more improvements he could suggest, so many more lives he could subtly touch. He thinks of the ongoing challenges of flood control, of sanitation, of optimizing the city's growth. His unique knowledge, once a burden, is now a gift, a tool he can use to make a tangible difference in a world desperately in need of it. His modern assumptions about the sanctity of the timeline, about non-interference, are now in direct conflict with his deeply human impulse to help, to build, to protect. He has already interfered, fundamentally, the idea of retreating, of allowing the city to revert to its previous trajectory, or to face its challenges without his unique perspective, feels like a moral abdication. He realizes, with a startling clarity, that his purpose might not be to return, but to remain, to continue his work here, to become a part of this ancient future. Hammurabi's empire thrives on order and progress. His contributions, however unorthodox, align with that spirit. The sun rises higher, bathing the city in warm, golden light, and the sounds of its daily awakening fill the air. He feels the weight of his decision, a heavy, yet strangely liberating burden. This week, the journey has brought him to a point of no return, a profound commitment to a life he never anticipated. He reflects that perhaps the greatest transformation isn't about the past he came from, or the future he might have had, but about the profound, undeniable call to purpose he has found in a world he was never meant to inhabit, a world that has, against all odds, become his own. A heavy, oppressive silence descends upon the city, broken only by the distant, ominous roar of the Euphrates. This week, the looming shadow of a great flood threatens the entire city, a crisis of unprecedented scale that chills him to the bone. The river, usually a life-giving artery, has become a monstrous, swollen presence, its brown waters churning with terrifying power, far beyond its usual banks. Panic, palpable and contagious, ripples through the streets. He stands atop the city walls, his urban planner's mind racing through worst-case scenarios, his eyes scanning the horizon. The river is rising at an alarming rate, fed by unexpected, torrential rains upstream and rapid snowmelt from distant mountains. He sees the protective embankments, some reinforced by his own earlier suggestions, now seeming tragically insufficient against this colossal force. His modern knowledge of hydrology and disaster preparedness screams for action: sandbags, evacuation routes, emergency shelters, large-scale coordinated response. But this is 1750 BCE, and the resources are limited. The understanding of such a catastrophic event deeply intertwined with divine wrath. He observes the desperate efforts of the people below. Families hurriedly securing their most precious belongings, driving livestock to higher ground, offering fervent prayers at the temples. The usual market clamor is replaced by urgent shouts, the frantic scrambling of people trying to save what they can. He notices the king's officials, the priests, and the military attempting to organize a defense, directing laborers to reinforce vulnerable sections of the walls with mud bricks and baskets of earth. Their faces are etched with grim determination, but also with a profound, almost hopeless despair. His modern assumptions about engineering feats capable of taming nature are shattered by the raw, overwhelming power of the Euphrates. He remembers the ancient myths of great floods, of civilizations wiped clean from the earth. This isn't just a natural disaster. It's an existential threat, a test of Babylon's very survival. He thinks of his earlier river mapping, his analysis of its ebb and flow. Now, the river has broken all known patterns, defying human prediction and control. His skills are suddenly thrust into the most critical challenge: how to save a city from drowning. The air itself feels heavy, humid, and thick with unspoken fear. The smell of damp earth and desperation permeating everything. He feels a chilling certainty that his purpose here, his very reason for being, has led him to this moment, to this terrifying, magnificent confrontation with nature's raw power. This week, the journey has brought him to the precipice of a colossal test, far beyond any urban planning project he ever imagined. He reflects that perhaps the ultimate act of belonging isn't found in quiet contribution, but in standing shoulder to shoulder with a community when the very foundations of their world are threatened, fighting for their survival against a force that mocks all human endeavor. The raw, cold spray of the Euphrates against his face, whipped by a furious wind, is a harsh reality this week. He is working alongside others, frantically shoring up a section of the city's ancient defenses, but a harrowing revelation has hit him with sickening force. The city's ancient defenses are far weaker than he ever imagined, particularly the parts that haven't benefited from his subtle designs. A section of the main river wall, a critical barrier, shows alarming signs of fatigue, its mud bricks dissolving under the relentless assault of the rising water, its bitumen sealant peeling like old skin. His urban planner's mind, now fully engaged in crisis mode, sees the structural weaknesses with horrifying clarity. The older sections of the embankment, built with generations of accumulated knowledge, but without his understanding of uniform compaction or precise angles of repose, are simply not holding up. He sees the frantic efforts of the laborers, their desperate, uncoordinated movements. They pile mud and reeds, but without a unified strategy or a precise understanding of the hydrodynamics. It feels like bailing a sinking ship with a thimble. His modern assumptions about robust, redundant infrastructure are brutally exposed as he witnesses the fundamental fragility of ancient construction under unprecedented stress. He gestures wildly, trying to direct groups of workers to the most critical points, to show them how to create a more effective barrier with the available materials, how to reinforce the base against undermining currents. He points to the critical weak points, the areas where water is seeping through, where the structure is visibly failing. He attempts to communicate the concept of diverting the current, of building sacrificial barriers further upstream to lessen the main impact. But the sheer scale of the flood makes such measures feel futile, impossible to implement quickly enough. His language skills feel woefully inadequate, his gestures desperate in the face of the encroaching catastrophe. He feels a profound, chilling guilt. The subtle improvements he'd managed to implement weeks ago now seem like drops in a vast, turbulent ocean. The sections he hadn't touched, the vast majority of the city's defenses, are the ones crumbling. He realizes that his earlier interventions, while beneficial, were too localized, too cautious. He had hesitated to impose too much change, fearing the butterfly effect. And now, the consequence of that caution is staring him in the face. A city teetering on the brink of inundation, its people facing untold suffering. The wind howls, carrying the roar of the river, and the shouts of the laborers become indistinct. He feels the immense, crushing weight of responsibility, the tragic realization that his unique knowledge, while valuable, was deployed too slowly, too sparingly. This week, the journey has brought him face to face with the limits of his impact and the terrifying scale of ancient adversity. He reflects that perhaps the greatest tragedy isn't just about witnessing the past, but about realizing the potential for catastrophe that lies just beyond the reach of his limited modern understanding, and the profound sorrow of not being able to save everyone. The cold, relentless drumming of rain against the mud brick walls and roofs is a terrifying symphony this week. The skies have opened, adding another layer of despair to the already surging Euphrates. He is soaked to the bone, shivering, but his mind is ablaze. He is directing frantic citizens, shouting instructions in rudimentary Akkadian, his voice hoarse, his arms a blur of gestures. This is the ultimate test of his leadership, his plans, and his ability to translate modern crisis management into ancient action. He stands in the middle of a collapsing section of the outer embankment, the water already breaching in places, creating swirling eddies in the streets. His urban planner's brain, once theoretical, is now intensely practical, focusing on triage, on protecting the most vulnerable areas first. He points to a line of people carrying baskets of earth, redirecting them to a newly formed breach, illustrating with urgent hand movements how to stack the mud bricks to form a temporary dike. He's implementing rudimentary flood control, leveraging the collective human effort and local materials, hoping against hope to stem the tide. He sees the terror in the eyes of the citizens, but also a flicker of desperate hope when he points, when he directs, when he seems to possess a plan in the midst of chaos. His modern assumptions about organized emergency services and clear chains of command are non-existent here. He has become a de facto leader, thrust into a role he never sought, simply because he possesses a different kind of foresight. The traditional leaders, the king's officials, are overwhelmed, their rituals and old methods proving tragically ineffective against the sheer physical force of the water. He remembers the ancient sagas of floods, of Gilgamesh, of the very fabric of their world being reshaped by water. He knows that in such desperate times, a clear voice, a decisive action, can galvanize a panicked populace. He focuses on simple, repetitive tasks. Fill, carry, stack. He shows them how to build a temporary wall, how to create a trench to divert localized flooding, using every ounce of his civil engineering knowledge, translated into basic, undeniable physical principles. His modern training in rapid assessment and strategic deployment of resources is now guiding raw, ancient strength. The rain lashes down, blurring his vision, mixing with the sweat and mud on his face. He feels the immense physical exertion, the strain in his muscles, the exhaustion in his bones. But he also feels a surge of primal purpose, an unyielding determination to save what can be saved. This week, the journey has stripped away all pretense, all theoretical knowledge, leaving only the raw, urgent need to lead in the face of absolute disaster. He reflects that perhaps true leadership isn't about power or status, but about stepping forward when no one else can, becoming the unwavering hand in the storm, guiding desperate people through the terrifying, fluid landscape of survival. The cold, muddy water swirling around his ankles is a constant, chilling reminder of the agonizing choice laid before him this week. The flood waters rise inexorably, pressing against the city's strained defenses. He stands at a critical juncture, mud-covered and utterly exhausted, facing a decision that tears at his modern conscience. Direct the dwindling resources and labor to bolster the defenses of the wealthy quarter, home to temples and officials, or try to protect the vulnerable, poorer districts, where the vast majority of common families live, but where defenses are weakest. His urban planner's mind, trained in principles of equity and social justice, screams to protect the most vulnerable. He sees the high density of housing in the poorer areas, the narrower, more exposed alleys, the sheer number of lives at risk, but he also understands the political reality of ancient Babylon. The temples are central to society. The wealthy pay the taxes, and the officials maintain order. He knows that diverting resources from the traditional centers of power could be seen as an act of treason, with dire consequences for himself and potentially for the city's overall ability to respond. He observes the frantic efforts on both sides. In the wealthy quarter, well-dressed officials direct more organized, better supplied teams, their defenses already stronger. In the poorer districts, families are fighting a desperate, losing battle with bare hands, trying to shore up crumbling mud walls, their pleas echoing his own internal torment. His modern assumptions about impartial public service are being brutally tested by the stark, hierarchical realities of Hammurabi's Babylon, where different classes have different values and different claims on resources. He feels the immense, crushing weight of leadership, the terrible burden of having to choose who lives and who suffers, a decision that would be unimaginable in his own time, or at least formalized by protocols and ethics boards. Here it's raw, immediate, and utterly personal. He sees the fear, the desperation, the unspoken pleas in the eyes of the common people, and the demanding, authoritative gestures from the officials. His skills, once his pride, now feel like a curse, forcing him to quantify human lives, to make an impossible, utilitarian calculation. The driving rain continues, mingling with the tears of frustration and despair that prick his eyes. He feels the moral ambiguity of his position, the agonizing compromise he must make between his modern ideals and ancient necessities. This week, the journey has pushed him to the absolute limits of his ethical framework, forcing him to confront the dark heart of decision-making in a crisis. He reflects that perhaps the greatest struggle in time travel isn't just about survival, but about retaining one's humanity and moral compass when confronted with choices that would shatter a modern soul, and accepting the bitter truth that not everyone can be saved. The pervasive smell of wet earth and devastation, a chilling dampness that clings clings to everything, fills his nostrils this week. He stands amidst the sodden ruins, the floodwaters having finally receded, leaving behind a landscape of wreckage and despair. Mud brick homes have dissolved back into the earth. Streets are impassable, and the once vibrant marketplaces are silenced. Yet, as he surveys the destruction, he sees not a stranger, but Babylon's planner, forged by the very flood that threatened to break him, his identity irrevocably tied to this battered, ancient city. His urban planner's mind, weary but resolute, is already assessing the damage, envisioning the rebuilding. He notes the areas that held the stronger sections he had influenced, and the catastrophic failures where his warnings were unheard or his designs absent. The wealthy quarter, partially spared, now stands in stark contrast to the utter ruin of the vulnerable districts, a painful testament to his agonizing choice. His modern assumptions about the inviolability of personal ethics have been shattered, forced to yield to the brutal calculus of ancient survival. And he carries the scars of that compromise. He observes the grieving, the shell-shocked survivors. Their faces are streaked with mud and tears, their movements slow and heavy. Yet, amidst the despair, he also sees an innate resilience, a quiet determination to begin again. He sees the mason, his face grim, already examining a cracked wall, planning for reconstruction. He sees the elder, his authority diminished, but his spirit unbroken, rallying groups to clear debris. And as their eyes meet his, he recognizes a shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement of his role in the struggle, a recognition that he is no longer an outsider. His professional skills, once a theoretical framework, have been forged in the crucible of disaster. He has learned to work with limited resources, to communicate with gestures and necessity, to lead by doing. He has learned the brutal lesson that sometimes compromise and difficult choices are the only way forward. The city, scarred and broken, is now his to help rebuild, not as an alien concept, but as a deeply personal project. He is no longer just a visitor. He is a part of Babylon's ongoing narrative, a chapter in its long history of triumph and tribulation. The sun, finally breaking through the heavy clouds, casts a weak, watery light over the devastated landscape. He feels the immense weight of the task ahead, the years of labor that will be required. But he also feels a profound sense of belonging, a quiet certainty that this is where he is meant to be. This week, the journey has stripped him bare, revealing the core of his purpose, transforming him from an observer into a participant, a planner who understands the true, messy, human cost of building a city. He reflects that perhaps the deepest adaptation isn't just about surviving a new environment, but about being utterly remade by it, becoming an inextricable part of its sorrow. its resilience, and its desperate, unwavering hope for a future. The familiar scent of damp earth and the distant cries of street vendors, once chaotic, now simply are. This week, a profound sense of time passing settles over him as he pauses in his labor. A moment of reflection amidst the ongoing effort of rebuilding. 40 weeks. It feels like a lifetime, a complete cycle of seasons, far removed from the concrete jungles of his original home. The man who arrived, bewildered and lost, is gone, replaced by someone irrevocably shaped by the harsh sun, the ancient dust, and the very mud of Babylon. He runs a calloused hand over the rough surface of a newly laid brick, feeling its texture, understanding its weight and its purpose. His urban planner's mind, once filled with abstract theories and digital models, now grapples with the tactile reality of construction, the visceral impact of every choice. He has learned to read the sky for rain, the river for flood, the faces of people for their needs and fears. His modern assumptions about progress, about technology, have been refined, stripped down to their fundamental human core, the enduring need for shelter, for water, for community, for order in a chaotic world. He thinks of the concrete jungles of his past, the towering skyscrapers, the intricate web of roads, the unseen pipes and wires that powered an effortless existence. That world now feels like a dream, a distant echo. The problems were different, but the core challenges of urban living, resource allocation, sanitation, social cohesion, disaster resilience remain constant, merely expressed in different forms, demanding different solutions. Here, the solutions are raw, immediate, and born of collective human effort, not machine efficiency. His professional identity has been utterly transformed. He is no longer just an urban planner. He is a builder, a problem solver, a leader, a participant in the literal shaping of a civilization. He has made choices that saved lives, and choices that, in retrospect, caused pain. He has navigated social hierarchies, cultural beliefs, and the raw, untamed power of nature. His impact is tangible, etched into the new walls, the clearer waterways, the faces of the people who now look at him not as a foreigner, but as one of their own, however strange. The sun, now familiar and almost comforting, warms his back, and the sounds of rebuilding, the rhythmic thud of mallets, the shouts of encouragement, fill the air. He feels the fatigue in his bones, a deep weariness that is both physical and spiritual, but also a profound satisfaction. This week, the passage of 40 weeks brings not a desire for escape, but a deep-seated recognition of his new reality. He reflects that perhaps the true measure of a life isn't its length, but the depth of its immersion, the extent to which one embraces the present, however unexpected, however ancient, and makes it undeniably one's own, the subtle scent of lingering charcoal from the mason's forge, a smell he has come to associate with diligent work and quiet companionship, now carries a profound sadness. This week, he offers a silent farewell to the mason, a deep, unspoken bond transcending the vast chasm of time and culture. The mason's hands, gnarled and powerful, offer him a small, carved clay amulet, a gesture of protection and friendship. He accepts it, his fingers closing around the warm, rough clay, a lump forming in his throat. He stands beside the mason near a section of newly rebuilt wall, reinforced and stronger than before. They survey their shared work, the physical testament to a collaboration that overcame linguistic barriers, cultural differences, and even a natural disaster. The mason's gaze, once wary, now holds a deep, quiet respect. He points to a particularly well-laid stone, a section where the foreigner's suggestion for better compaction made a visible difference, and then nods slowly, a gesture that conveys both gratitude and professional admiration. His urban planner's mind acknowledges the profound lesson the mason has taught him: the wisdom of tradition, the resilience of ancient methods, and the inherent dignity of skilled labor. He, in turn, has offered the mason a new perspective, a subtle enhancement of his craft. Their friendship, born of necessity during the flood and cemented by shared purpose, has transcended their disparate origins. It's a bond built on the universal language of building, of improving, of surviving together. His modern assumptions about individual achievement have given way to an appreciation for communal effort and the quiet power of human connection. He knows that his departure, whenever it may come, will be another severance, another loss. The mason will continue his work, shaping the city with his practiced hands, perhaps incorporating more of the lessons learned during the Great Flood, perhaps even passing on some of the foreigner's subtle techniques to his apprentices. The butterfly effect of their collaboration will continue to ripple through Babylon's future, a testament to a unique, unexpected partnership. The sun begins to set, casting long, peaceful shadows over the rebuilt structures. He feels the small, warm amulet in his hand, a tangible reminder of the unbreakable bond. This week, the journey has brought him to a poignant understanding of human connection across time, a bittersweet recognition of the fleeting nature of all relationships, yet the enduring power of genuine friendship. He reflects that perhaps the greatest legacy isn't grand monuments, but the subtle, profound ways in which one human being touches the life and work of another, leaving an imprint that resonates far beyond words, across the silent, indifferent expanse of centuries. The pervasive smell of sun-baked mud, still damp in some places, but now mixed with the determined scent of human effort, and freshly applied bitumen fills the air. This week, he walks the city not as a stranger, but as an integral part of its fabric, observing the tangible results of weeks of frantic rebuilding. The city, scarred by the recent flood, is now visibly stronger, bearing the indelible mark of his urban planning legacy, a silent testament to a hidden history. He stands atop a newly reinforced section of the great city wall, gazing over the sprawling metropolis. The damage is still evident in places, raw patches of new mud brick contrasting with older, weathered surfaces. But the areas he directly influenced, the strengthened embankments, the better drained thoroughfares, the repositioned public spaces, these now stand as clear examples of improved resilience. He sees the careful, measured approach to reconstruction, an emphasis on stronger foundations and more durable canal linings, reflecting lessons learned from the flood, lessons he helped teach. His urban planner's mind sees not just individual structures, but a holistic improvement in the city's overall infrastructure. The flow of people seems more organized, the water in the canals less stagnant. He notices subtle changes in building practices, a greater awareness of drainage and elevation in new constructions. These are not revolutionary shifts, but evolutionary ones, small, persistent adaptations that over time will make Babylon a more robust and enduring city. His modern assumptions about the power of deliberate design have been validated, not through imposition, but through careful guidance and demonstrable success. He observes the citizens, their faces still showing the strain of the recent catastrophe, but also a renewed sense of purpose and communal effort. They are rebuilding their homes, their lives, and in doing so, are unknowingly integrating the quiet, transformative ideas of a man from a distant future. His impact is woven into the very fabric of the rebuilt city, a silent, unsung hero of its recovery. His identity as Babylon's planner feels more real, more profound than any title he held in his past life. The sun, once a punishing force, now shines down on a city determined to survive and thrive. He feels a deep, quiet pride, a profound satisfaction in seeing the results of his unique journey. This week, the passage of time brings not just the end of a chapter, but the tangible evidence of a life profoundly lived, a legacy quietly etched into the history of one of the world's greatest ancient cities. He reflects that perhaps true immortality isn't found in returning to one's own time, but in leaving a lasting, positive mark on a world that desperately needed it, becoming an enduring, if secret, architect of its future. The rhythmic clang of bricklayers' mallets, a steady, measured beat against the sun-baked clay, is no longer just noise. This week, it has become a soothing, almost meditative sound, a pulse of creation that resonates deep within him. He watches the workers, their movements synchronized, their faces streaked with effort and mud, and finds profound peace in their ancient, unwavering rhythm. He accepts it now, completely, his new ancient existence, woven into the very fabric of this rebuilding city. He sits on a low wall, a newly finished section of an improved drainage channel, feeling the warmth of the sun on his skin, the familiar grit of dust on his clothes. His urban planner's hands, once clean and soft, are now calloused, strong, and intimately familiar with the raw materials of Babylon. He points with a knowing gesture to a laborer, indicating a slight adjustment to a foundation stone, a detail born of his modern understanding, yet implemented with ancient tools. There's a quiet understanding, a shared professional language that transcends words. He recalls the early weeks, the sensory overload, the overwhelming feeling of being utterly lost and out of place. That fear, that desperate longing for home, has receded to a faint, almost distant memory. His modern assumptions, once rigid and unyielding, have softened, adapted, transformed by the brutal, beautiful reality of this ancient world. He has learned to appreciate the efficiency of simplicity, the wisdom of tradition, the strength of communal bonds, and the profound resilience of the human spirit when faced with overwhelming adversity. His professional purpose, once defined by abstract plans and digital models, has found a raw, visceral manifestation here. He is not just designing, he is building, teaching, learning, leading, surviving. He is part of the collective effort to rebuild Babylon, to make it stronger, more enduring. The city is not just a project. It is a living entity he has grown to love, its scars now as familiar as its triumphs. He no longer feels like an anomaly, a man out of time. He is simply here, doing the work that needs to be done. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in fiery hues, and the rhythmic clang of the bricklayers continues, a comforting backdrop to the steady progress. He feels a quiet sense of permanence, a profound peace that surpasses any fleeting joy. This week, the journey has completed a transformation, bringing him to a place of ultimate acceptance. He reflects that perhaps true belonging isn't about finding your way back to where you started, but about finding your essential self in the most unexpected of places, forging a new identity that is both ancient and modern, and embracing the profound, simple truth that this, now, is his life. He stands atop the ziggurat this week, not as a tourist, but as a man deeply woven into the city's very fabric, gazing upon Babylon's growing skyline. The rhythmic clang of distant hammers and the rising plumes of smoke from newly fired bricks punctuate the air, not as noise, but as the steady heartbeat of creation. Below him, the city sprawls, scarred in places by the recent flood, but visibly, defiantly rebuilding stronger. His heart is anchored here, a new life, a new beginning, forged in the relentless sun and the resilient mud of ancient Mesopotamia. His urban planner's eye sweeps across the panorama, seeing not just the individual structures, but the intricate, living system he has come to know and love. He traces the paths of the revitalized canals, now flowing with clearer purpose, their banks fortified with the techniques he helped introduce. He spots the communal well, its surrounding area now better drained, a hub of activity and conversation. He sees the newly constructed sections of wall, rising with a subtle, improved geometry, a testament to the quiet lessons he imparted. These are not just buildings. They are physical manifestations of his efforts, his knowledge, his very being, etched into the enduring clay of Babylon. He has shed the last vestiges of his modern self, his former life now a faint, almost mythical narrative, the endless stream of information, the instant gratification, the sterile efficiency of his old world. These have faded into the background, replaced by the profound, tangible reality of building by hand, of communicating with gestures and shared effort, of finding solutions within the constraints of raw earth and human strength. His modern assumptions about progress have found their deepest meaning not in technological advancement, but in the enduring human capacity for adaptation, resilience, and collective improvement. He has found his place, not as a returning traveler, but as a permanent fixture. He walks among the people, and they greet him with nods, with smiles, with a deep, silent respect. He is the one who saw the weaknesses, who helped them rebuild better, who contributed his strange, invaluable wisdom in their time of greatest need. His identity as an urban planner has transcended its original context. He is now Babylon's planner, a guardian of its growth, a quiet architect of its future. The thought of ever leaving, of disrupting this deeply interconnected existence, is no longer a yearning, but a profound impossibility. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the vast Mesopotamian sky in familiar, breathtaking hues, and the city below glows, a vibrant, living entity. He feels the comforting weight of the clay amulet the mason gave him, a symbol of the bonds he has forged, the life he has built. This week, the journey has reached its culmination, not in an end, but in a powerful, undeniable new beginning. He reflects that perhaps the greatest journey isn't across physical distances or through time, but within oneself, discovering an unforeseen purpose, a true home, and a profound, unexpected anchoring of the heart in a place and a time that were never meant to be his own.